the incentive to prevent churn through holiday periods, having a flexible enough CRM, MarTech stack and payments platform that basically talks to one another.
Hi everybody, for this episode of Retention Zone, the video podcast focus on streaming monetization and retaining customers and churn. I have the pleasure to have with me Hugo Sharman. He's been in different roles. I call him a streaming exec, someone that has spent in digital sport and streaming a lot of time. And we also have worked together quite some times. He was one of my partner in crime when I started my career in public speaking, giving me a lot of advice and a lot of tricks that I applied through the years, right? If you remember. Ciao, Hugo.
Ciao, Carlo. Ciao.
So tell me a bit about your trajectory in this beautiful sport media streaming ecosystem.
Well, it's a journey. Is it a trajectory? I don't know, but yeah, it's
journey. It's a better word. I agree.
Sometimes going up, sometimes flat, but yeah, it's no, probably approaching 20 years, I think now in what I would describe as digital sports. So as you and I know, having worked, I was at Delta Trade for the best part of 10 years. Working in the data side, in the streaming side, in the digital side, also in the TV side, as it was then, of the business. And I think in some ways that was a great reflection. That company was a great reflection of how the sports media market started to converge. And really we saw that probably from 2015. The convergence of data, of TV, of digital together, which was a fascinating place to be. In the last 6 years, or last just under 5 years, I've run a streaming company, so I've been really at the forefront of the, well, do you call it OTT or do you call it D2C? It seems to divide opinion, but certainly at the forefront of video subscription monetization of sports fans. So I've had the experience of working with a lot of clubs and rights holders and people in this space. And even in 5 years, the market, the industry has developed at an extraordinary pace. And I have to say, just generally, it's what an amazing industry to work in. The speed, the technology evolution, the change in media rights, which affects sport, it's a fascinating cauldron or boiling pot of opportunity. So I think we've got a lot to talk about.
Absolutely, and two things. One, you know that I started, I think Monday morning early to write a piece about the different acronyms and comparing OTT, streaming, direct to consumer, and then I think at some point I stopped because it's not so interesting. But yeah, I think there is a bit of debate about what is the best term to use for what we mean for this area. On the other end, I agree. It's an engaging, if you want, ecosystem to be in, because even I've worked for the same company 35 years, and in any normal industry it will be like, oh, whoa, that was so boring. But I can tell you, and you know, it's definitely the opposite of boring. So, but I think you have a great perspective because you've been, even on the vendor side, working with a lot of clients, so you can also see both ends of the spectrum. What is the state of streaming in your view, especially if you want in our sport and media industry, both from a fans, platforms, whatever you want to call them, or sport entities and vendors? Give me a bit of a brief overview of what you have seen, what you have experienced through the last few years.
I think it's really interesting. I think there was if I go back to 2017, 2018, 19, start of the pandemic, 2020 was like let's call it the streaming bubble. The bubble grew and grew and grew, and that there was definitely a bubble there, which was the sports market, the sports business market was getting incredibly excited about. Um, I think it was around about the time again when you saw the first signs of even the biggest leagues in football, in European football, seeing their media rights plateau or even go down, which was like, the biggest shock to the system. It's almost like
Mhm.
an industry that's hooked on that sort of continuous growth for the first time saw that that growth stall. And I think everybody looked at streaming and thought, well, this is the answer. This is going to fix the problem. And I think the reality now, looking where we are now, is for most people that hasn't happened. I'd say for the very vast majority that hasn't happened. The numbers in business plans around how many subscribers, how much revenue we're going to make, how many ad dollars we're going to make, just didn't happen. Just hasn't happened.
A-
So
And you mean
uh,
direct to consumer streaming in that sense? So sport
exactly,
properties going directly to consumer with a streaming platform, which is technically product wise super easy these days, right? If you want to do it.
exactly, yeah.
But
The but was that it was that classic thing of conversion, funnel conversion. The mistake I think a lot of people made was looking at TV numbers and TV number conversion, maybe using, for example, a free to air model, and getting a lot of the business cases that we saw a few years ago were like, well, those numbers just don't add up. I mean, you're not going to see that return, or you need to add another decimal place on that, because you're not going to. And of course, when that became reality, um, if rights holders or clubs have invested potentially significant amounts, millions into a platform, and the P&L was like that's a big issue. So I think anyway, the era or the bubble of streaming um, has burst. I think it's burst, but it needs and is going through now almost like a recalibration, right? It's not that that's not the answer. It's just that it needs to be done better, and it needs to be done in a more realistic way. It still has a huge, and don't get me wrong, there are properties, and you and I both know who they are because we worked with them, for several years. There are properties out there that make significant revenue, like 7, 8 figure revenue off subscription streaming, and their rights, their rights organized, their federations and leagues. So it can be done, but for the vast majority, the expectation of how much marketing they needed to do, what the
mm,
content proposition was, the editorial policy. I mean, all of these things, they're just not equipped to do it properly, and therefore it didn't work.
so two questions. One of the reason, apart from the mathematics, the financials, is not also that there was a lack of direct to consumer mindset in this classical B2B organization. What do you think?
Yes, exactly right. I mean, yeah, and I think this is a tension between or inside a lot of sports organizations. Historically, they've come up, they've governed the sport, they've created the rules, the frameworks, policy, etc. And then they have to become sort of a media organization. And I
Mhm.
mean, lots of people have commented on this. I'm not saying anything new here, but that is when you look at the sort of investment required to really do it properly. And of course, at the same time, everyone else is trying to do it. So the market is just flooded with content. It's just flooded with more and more stuff, which makes cut through much harder. And um, and that's why you know organizations haven't seen the return. They're just not cut out to do it in a sophisticated way. And I almost think you're starting to see it go completely 180 degrees now, where organizations are saying, actually, let's just decide to do, let's just put it in the hands of YouTube, because YouTube can do the content surfacing, it can do the marketing. There's a okay, we don't get the first party data acquisition, but it just is a headache that we could just push away. Just get rid of it, or you just go to the rights holder, and it almost reverts to the historical model. We've seen a lot of that lately as well.
But on the other side, the media side of the equation embrace streaming like completely, but not everybody's doing well. Let me place it like that. Even if sport is becoming again more and more crucial, I think.
Yeah, I
Disagree?
I don't know if sport is becoming more. I think one of the things, I mean, and there's one thing that maybe you and I and colleagues of ours used to talk about, said, well, there's live sport and then forget everything else. It's a waste of time. And that's not really true anymore, because the story and the personalities that the players have such a dominant role
No,
now.
that's true.
It's actually I suppose the question is really, is that statement, live sport, it's live sport or nothing else, is that actually true anymore? I mean, of course
a lot less.
Yeah,
a lot less. I agree.
At least you can build a fantastic business without live sport, and I guess Netflix have done that with curating brilliant sort of documentaries and so on. But again, the production values of that are huge. So it does kind of call into question the real value of live sport. I think it's a good example of how the market's shifting.
And on the other end, going more on the monetization aspect of it, you have launched, or with your clients, a series of before and after, a series of new platform product in sports streaming. What's your view in acquisition, which if you start from zero and even after that you need, and retention / churn? What's your experiences, or I mean, anything you can share, even anonymously, if you're talking about clients?
Yeah, well, I mean, acquisition is. I think acquisition is the hardest thing. I mean, we did some really great campaigns around acquisition with some of our customers, but they tended to be hyper focused on where we'd identified either geographies or demographics that were receptive to the offer. I mean, and again, from a budget perspective, a lot of our customers, they weren't used to spending any material on marketing. So you were literally looking at, okay, well, if we spent a few €1,000 in Indian subcontinent, maybe parts of Asia that we'd identified as high growth potential, and we design across certain social channels a very targeted message with a very, very clear call to action. Let's look at doing that. Okay, that's sort of one. Let's also look at the price point and trying to break down. I think one of the things that's quite interesting is you're seeing now what we had in the past was that content's either free or it's paid. Right? It's either in front of the paywall or it's behind the paywall. And the thing now, and actually, there's a customer you and I both work with that springs to mind. When they started to play around with that, like move content in front, simplify the registration process, so you could watch for free. Or actually, I remember one time you can watch half an hour or watch the first half for free, and then you kind of have to pay. Sometimes you mess it up, and sometimes there's a bit of a backlash. But most of the time, if you play around with things and try things out, you think actually that could work. So I think there's a bit of that. We and some of the time, yeah, we did get criticized for ideas that didn't work, but usually in this sort of world, people forgive you very, very quickly. It's like, well, you're just trying something different, and as long as people get access, as long as they can watch, as long as there's no technical issues, people are quite forgiving, I think. So I think that's been a big change around sort of just encouraging a bit of test and learn,
Hmm.
see if you
Hmm.
can do something a bit different.
Hmm. And then, okay, you have all these customers. At a certain point, the word churn became crucial, especially when the big the big streaming companies start to say, "Oh, we're getting flat. Oh, we're getting down." So everybody panicked. But it's especially true in sport where you have seasonality. So you have experienced these best practices on how to fight churn, how retention becomes maybe nowadays is super focused for many platforms.
Yeah, I think it's all about messaging and it's about timing and it's about the incentive to prevent churn through holiday periods, having a flexible enough CRM, Martech stack and payments platform that basically talks to one
Yeah.
another. And this is actually kind of one of the bits that it probably sounds quite boring because you're like talking about these kind of bits of the plumbing, but actually, if if I get hit with a month before my annual subscription runs out, if I get hit with a pay for 9 months, get 12, or a kind of or a discount, actually we'll give you 13 months for month 13 free or something like that. Those things actually do make a difference. It's like we've all been there with our Disney Plus or our Apple Plus. I've got 3 months free. You get some way into a box set, and you think, oh, it's only $6.99. Ah, just keep going.
Yeah.
These sorts of things. It's micro kind of level, but they can actually make a big difference.
But
Again, another big federation that I worked with in the past. They saw a kind of it's like 250% increase in that. They made a change to their registration. They actually said, well, we don't need that now. What we're going to do is we're going to cut it right down, like cut it by a third. And then over time, we'll just ask people, could you tell us a bit more about yourself? Because then we're just going to serve you better content. That cut the time for registration, and it actually meant that they got 250% increase in registrations anyway. Which again, if you think about the value of that first party data capture, it's like wow, that's a significant
yeah.
amount.
And also
So
it gives you an excuse that is not frivolous to engage again with the customer, etc. Right?
yeah, you're not annoying them, you're just
Yeah.
bringing them in slowly. Yeah,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and it worked really well. So
And
um,
do you think how much? So obviously behind all that there is a huge amount of data about customers in this case, maybe fans for sure, if they're spending the money. Uh, do you see any? I mean, have you seen, or do you think there will be a lot of improvement if we understand and possibly take action? Because otherwise, it's only insights. But yeah, great, but we are smarter. But if we don't take action based on the insight, it's not very useful. Do you think just to talk about AI, because can we not talk about AI? But that's an area where I think it can really make a difference. But I don't know if you already seen something or what's your view on that?
I haven't seen anything really significant in AI yet. Not yet. I mean, I think the question of around data in sport that hasn't. That's still there's still the untapped potential. I mean, I think just on that generally that kind of like data in sport, understanding the fan. I think people there's a suggestion at the moment if you can crack that, then you really open up huge opportunity in terms of revenue streams. I actually doubt that. I think that there's certainly an opportunity. I think for most properties there's a ceiling on how much fans you're going to engage with and how much revenue you're going to make. And a lot of people just don't want to hear that. They're sort of like,
Hmm.
no. If we really get this right, content, data, we get our CRM, single site, we get all that right. With just the floodgates are going to open. I just don't think they will. And I think it's really a bit of a sanity check really for a lot of the sports business to say, well, actually, you probably hit the limit of your growth. Now, if you do certain things right, you bring your costs down, you can increase revenue maybe 5-10%, or not even that much. You could see a big change in your business, but really up to a point, you're not. This is probably it. Um,
And
so
you think the global market could be a way which everybody's already trying to go for? That could be the expansion, because I can imagine even the NFL, etc., apart having like massive, media rights. I mean, they have 90% of the market, so they need to go international, like they're doing. The Premier League is super strong internationally, for example. But you think even
yeah,
at direct-to-consumer level, because one thing is media rights, one thing is direct-to-consumer.
but I still think there's a ceiling on NFL and other things like that. I mean, if it bleeds into genuine entertainment, and actually people on the other side of the other side of the world who have no real connection and historical connection to NFL, if somehow you can make the personalities, the players, come to life for them in a way that actually makes it culturally really significant, then great. But that's probably going to that could even take a generation.
Mhm.
This is why it's sort of like, well, if you're, and how much investment might that take to actually get there? I'd love
Mhm.
to know what the actual impact, and I'm sure there's some fantastic stats around this. But the London series that they're playing, the NFL games
Yeah.
in London at the moment, I'd love to know, and I'm sure it's touching European fans. I've no doubt some really good data, but I'd love to see what the data was to see. Well, okay, well, is it actually is the return on the investment coming through in a way that you anticipated, or is it just you're selling X number of tickets? Like, what's the long term legacy almost of that? I'd
Mhm.
love to know the answer.
Mhm. No, absolutely. And so a more, if you want, just to finish off, but then maybe I'll try a better way to finish off, to be honest. How do you see the vendor? Because this, I'm not sure how positive this is, without calling names, but how do you see the vendor ecosystem for streaming? Because I think one thing that I saw is there is a bubble of everybody want to launch an OTT. So many vendors created OTT platforms. What's going on in the vendor space? What's your view there?
Uh, I think it's quite busy. It's quite busy in the space, but I think the vendor space is the same really as the vendor space across the digital sports market. It's adapting to the changes in the changing market, which is how do we return like genuine value? How do we really help the customers monetize? And that means you're sort of becoming. I mean, because if you look at and again without naming, a major league issued a brief at the start of this year, and it was streaming, but it was everything else. It wasn't sort of, yeah, well, we're going to do kind of like a vertical kind of channel. It was like, we are. This is how we want to position our sport um, globally to a fan base, and it touched upon sort of cultural elements, music, lifestyle, art, and then the live sport bit was a part of that, but it was only a part of it. It was like, look, this is what we're trying to achieve. It wasn't about, yes, well, we want to stream, these games, and
The
therefore we're
one
going to charge.
OVP. We want an OVP.
Yeah, it was a really like imaginative brief that you thought to yourself, if they can do this, that would be the single greatest case study in global sport for how to engage fans. And it just so happened that a bit of it was streaming, but probably 15% of it. The rest of it was really ambitious. And I think for me, it sort of set the benchmark for where any sport organization kind of needs to go. It's like really thinking about what they can do and putting a plan. So
So so I don't want predictions, because I don't like prediction. I'm not doing prediction because it's a bit silly on one end. But what is the scenario do you think we have in front? What's the scenario in the next years? Possible scenarios then in the next years? Because Europe and US to me seem a bit different. In US, the big tech, general term, Apple, and even Netflix, I consider in that sense. But so the big platform, big tech, are much more present and aggressive in the US, a bit less in Europe, my impression.
Mm.
Do you think there will be a big disruption again, or consolidation will happen just to survive, which could be also the case?
I can't see a big tech disruption. Or certainly I can't see a big media rights disruption in the way that the FANGs came along, and then, Amazon within that particularly kind of played a part. That was a massive disruption, and it changed the market. Obviously, the French league situation, Serie A, to an extent, it's been a big kind of a shock, I think, to the whole industry, to the whole market.
Yeah.
I don't really see that recovering. Almost like I don't. We tend to sort of talk about, if you've been in the industry long, you tend to talk about peaks and troughs, peaks and troughs, peaks and troughs. I can't really see. I'm not really sure if this is going to be even though I think confidence is returning. It's not going to be. I don't think the market's going to be the same. It's not. It's not coming back up to, oh, it's just like it was before. Don't worry, everyone relax. I think the change is now for good, and it's almost like a recovering market, but also with almost like a soberness that actually things will probably never be the same. And I dare say that, some sports maybe won't make it. I'm not the first person to say that. Some sports, I agree, just haven't. Culturally, they have huge significance. Like communities, even whole countries, are completely, very important historical significance, but they don't make any money, and they're not sustainable commercially. So, what do you do? I mean, what's more important? You funnel it into that, or you funnel it into the health service of the country, or other things that, frankly, are more important than sport. So I think there's probably, I think certain organisations, certain people are going to go through quite a lot, probably some pain, but I think ultimately, I'm really optimistic about the future, because I don't know the answer yet, but I think, well, this is so much change going on, and a lot of it, there's going to be huge opportunity out there. It just won't be straightforward. It won't be a nice smooth curve. It'll be
Yeah.
clunky.
So I just realized I just published today on A Guy with a Scarf, not on retention zone, something more generic about sport that is called "Is Sport Unbeatable?" And I have 10 points for which I think it is. I may need to come back with you and do an episode just on that to see if you disagree with my 10 points. Va
I'll take a
bene.
look at that.
So thank you, Hugo. It was really good to talk to you, because you're not talking in an empty room on one end, but also you come from a lot of experience directly with clients on streaming platform, with paying customers. And I think you share with me the fact that when you have a paying customer in front of you on the other side, compared to when we were doing just websites and apps without knowing who was on the other side, I think even emotionally you feel a different accountability, I would say. I don't know if you share that, but I felt it
Yeah,
personally.
you do. Yeah, you do. You definitely do. Yeah. And when things don't go well, if things go wrong, things break, which of course they do from time to time. You feel it too. The good times and the bad.
Va bene. Thank you, Hugo, for taking the time.
Ciao, Carlo. Great to speak to you. Cheers.